Welcome to what do we do here again? Sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna hurt you. Did you just come to the podcast today and forget where you are?
Welcome back to another episode of Seeds of Love. Monday, how was your week?
My week has been fabulous, no pun intended.
Oh, fabulous. I
Mm-hmm,
mean, your choice of words,
mm-hmm,
Monday.
mm-hmm,
Tell
mm-hmm.
us more. What was the fabulous?
Well, it's a long weekend, so I get to rest. Today was actually one of those days that I was able to use to catch up a little bit on a few things. For example, um, I have my blog that I
Mm-hmm.
needed to update. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this beautiful article on Martin Luther King Day and being a Haitian man from my perspective. But
Well,
yeah, so
on Monday, I don't know if you get the memo. I think they changed it. It's no longer Martin Luther King Day. It is Jonathan Majors King Day.
what?
But I have this picture I found online. I mean, one thing, the internet is going to internet. And it's a picture of, when he did the march
Mm-hmm.
and he had his wife, Coretta Scott King, next to him. Someone put Jonathan Major's face on the good
I can
doctor.
see it. I can see
And
it.
I'll send it to you after this. And so it's the funniest thing. And him looking for his Coretta, I think it's fitting. So
Yeah, yeah. I
um
can see it though. That is funny.
to those of you who are celebrating, happy Jonathan Majors King Day.
Yeah. So what's
And
going on with you? You all pretty up to date? I don't know,
me,
maybe. Yeah, yeah.
it's all for
I
you. I
know
did all
this.
this for you.
Oh, you're such a liar.
Because
You
unlike
didn't
you,
even know what show you were doing tonight. So
I don't say that. But unlike you, Monday, today I had to work. Not
oh,
all of us get this day off. And I
okay.
was just sitting here, I was thinking, yeah, I work on Martin Luther King Day. So I
Well, you know
work
what?
unlike
I
you.
enjoyed it for the two of us. So
You did
um
all.
mm-hmm,
That's why it was a
mm-hmm,
fabulous day
mm-hmm.
because you enjoyed it for Fabi. Thank you.
Absolutely. Speaking
You're
about
welcome.
fabulous, I heard we have a marvelous guest
Oh my
on the
gosh,
studio
yes we
today. She got
do.
the shades on, she got lipstick on, she got
I mean,
earrings
she's
on.
looking bright.
Yes. So tell me about this wonderful person that you have sitting on your left.
So we have none other. Well, before we even jump to our guests,
Mm-hmm.
so we can't forget that this new season we're doing something new. We are spotlighting small businesses.
Correct. That's right.
And
See,
so
I
she's
forgot about
here.
that.
She has a small business. She is a minority. And so, I mean, it only makes sense to spotlight her and her
Mm-hmm.
business. And so, so today's spotlight is lean off taxes. And I
Mm.
know a lot of you guys are here for relationship conversation and love. I mean, seeds of love, but we don't want to be in love broke, right? We want to make sure, because remember, we always talk about taking care of your stuff before you bring somebody else in, and your finances is important. So
Mhm.
we thought, top of the year, people have goals, people have resolutions, which I don't do resolutions anymore. I just have goals and I move my goals to the next year and next whatever. But so we thought it was a great idea to have lean off taxes here, and where she can help us get our finances together, whether you're already in a relationship, whether you're looking for a relationship, whatever your situation is, we all need to work on our finance.
You know what I love about today's conversation is the fact that whether you are single or in a relationship or out of a relationship, you can still learn something that you can adapt to or apply to your life that's going to benefit not just you, but your entire family. So stay tuned.
Absolutely.
When we come back, we will be ready to introduce to you the star of the night. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Music playing. Dun, 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 dun.
You with your sound effect. Really excited to be in the presence of
Before the break,
such a
Monday, you were
diversity. You're always cutting me when I'm trying to be sexy. What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you, Monday. I'm sorry. But
What happened
no,
before the break?
before the break, when you were talking about, whether you're in a relationship or something, and
Mhm.
I thought about something, and I think it's important because especially, around our age, and we've had that conversation on the show about divorce. We
Mhm.
also have a lot of divorcees that's starting over. And we know, like our good friend Laura mentioned, there's divorce take a lot of toll on people financially, and a lot of people are
Absolutely.
starting fresh. And
Absolutely.
so, that I think today's conversation, there's a little bit for everyone. But back to your sexy.
No, I agree. I agree. Oh no, I'm done being sexy. I
You're
was
done being
born that
sexy.
way.
Come on.
I was born that way, so you're always
We're
gonna
not
get
having
that.
this conversation here, Monty.
Let's move on to the
Let's move
beautiful. We have
on.
another sexy on in here today. So let me just
Oh,
step back and
yes.
let's shine the light on the one and only the Julia Bien-Aime. Did you see that name when she came up?
I don't know if, because, she has like an entire name. It's like an inside joke. But today we'll just call her Julia Bien-Aime, because I don't want to share it with the world, because I don't want everybody to be like,
So of course,
Carmen BA.
my mind.
So I'm just gonna call her Julia Bien-Aime. And
So
maybe if our listeners are nice enough, then we'll share the inside joke with her, like with them, like the entire name.
yeah, and I love the BNMA because if you translate that, it means that she is well loved, right? Right. So Julia
Ooh.
is well loved. But
And of
yes,
course, the Haitian American in me, I'm translating in English and I'm like, good loving. Isn't that what it is? Good
good
loving?
loving.
It's something very
Um,
similar. Don't get me to start with my making up words. Because if
I'm
it's
gonna.
one thing I do, I can make up some words, translate some
Yeah,
words.
you definitely did make this one up. Let's move on.
Without further ado, um, please, guys, let's welcome our amazing guest, Julia Bien-Aime. And Julia, please tell us about your business, because we're still spotlighting your business. How you
Welcome,
doing?
Julia.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. So, remind me that I have to give you an inside joke about the anime. I promise. I
Okay.
think your audience would love it. First of all, thank you, Mondy and Fabi, for having me on. It means the world to me. Hello to everyone. My name is Julia Bien-Aime. I am the proud owner of Lean Off Taxes, which I established in 2017. I have worked in the corporate spaces with organizations such as Deloitte, KPMG. I've also done contract work with Coca-Cola, Heineken, and other brands. I have an array of experience, and essentially what led me to Lean Off Taxes was Trump came into office, and there was something called the Trump tax reform. At the time, I was working with one of the top accounting firms, and I was tasked to help um, corporations actually save money on their taxes. And I felt conflicted. I was actually borderline depressed working in that role because I knew how much our community would be impacted while I'm enabling with tools to help corporations save money. I know that people in our community were going to be hurt. They were going to owe taxes. And I wanted to be that person to kind of educate and articulate, um, not so much to get them away from paying it, because whatever you owe, you will owe, but around the conversation of budgeting so that something like that would not happen to you. And that when something to that magnitude arises that you did not expect, how to prepare yourself, how to pad yourself, how to code yourself so that you and your loved ones will not be impacted. Because many families were impacted. based on this reform. Whether you receive less money, some people were expecting to receive a certain dollar amount that needed to get them through paying their rent or paying that college tuition for that son or that daughter, or, paying for that wedding. Whatever the case may be, it was cut short because of a decision that was made that was outside of their control. So I have a motto: I mind my client's business to keep them in business. So I had the conversation. If you're getting a refund, what do you plan to do with your refund? Let's talk about how that will be beneficial to you or not beneficial to you. These are the things that we can do so that you could probably still meet your goal, or perhaps your goal will be delayed, but it won't be denied if we have the strategy in place in order to make families whole. Tax preparation is very transactional, but I am not a transactional person. I am a relationship-based person. I hope that if I have a college graduate, it's my hope that I'm able to educate them and guide them along the way to when they decide to become married or become an executive in the corporation and be married, because both are possible, to retiring. And what does that look like? So by the time that retirement comes, we don't have that oops conversation. There was already strategy. There was already a plan of action, a call to action, so to speak, in order to reach that milestone or that goal. I would like to say that nothing's impossible. All things are possible with a plan, is what I would like to say. And even if that plan were to get deterred, I always tell folks, I believe in the higher power. I tell people that, man's rejection is God's protection. So that means, if that person was dreaming about buying that dream home, guess what? It's a home, but you could make your other home a dream of yours where you could, so I try to utilize those type of bits in order to empower our community so that they can make better educated decisions. And with education, and making better decisions, we will have less calamities. We will have less oops. And more so, okay, this happened. I have this in plan. I have this in tow. I could turn to the right. I know what I need to do next instead of being a deer in the headlights.
Guardrails.
Yeah. So I've been in business since the year 2017. My mom was like, Julie, you're unhappy. You're definitely not happy. Give yourself a break. Why don't you're always giving people gems for free. People actually pay you to do their taxes. I was like, oh no, I don't think so. I went and I had a coach. My coach name was Nadesh Furiman. She is a multi-entrepreneur. She's actually on a tour, a culinary historic tour in Haiti with Bellevue Tours. They're doing, I think it's the 5th year of her tour. Don't misquote me because I went on the first year and the second year. And she actually assisted me in coaching on how I wanted to show up for my business because I was unsure. I had the skill set, but I didn't have the level of confidence because I didn't know what that looked like. Because when you get things for free, you don't want to feel like, I felt like a shark. And you don't have to be a shark. You can actually be paid your worth while still being a contributor. So she provided me certain skill sets of just understanding the dynamics of how business works so that once I step into my business, I could show up sure with everything because confidence is key in doing so. I just felt like very small asking people for things. And funny enough, I already had a set of clientele, but I would start getting these phone calls because folks would start going and get their taxes done. And then I'll get a call. Hi, Shushu, can I meet you privately? I have a problem. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And what they expected in a tax return didn't happen. So certain things I was able to resolve. Other things I had to coach in how do we now budget for an unexpected expense. Now let's go through everything. Let's go through your bills that are necessary and ordinary, and then let's go through everything else afterwards. Let's work on what the urgent matters so we can have an actual plan so that you won't lose your gasket, and making people feel that they're being heard. Yeah. You'll be very surprised, married couples or even single people, there's a level of shame because it's not a comfortable conversation to have. Some people don't have the language to ask, not so much the right questions, but they don't know what questions to ask that will allow them to solve the problem, because sometimes people don't even understand where the problem started from to solve it. So I just want to be uh, a cheerleader to cheer people on and to give them the proper tools so that they can navigate their daily lives. And hopefully with those tactics, they have the language to start having the conversations with their spouse,
I
with
mean,
their children, and
it
with their
sounds
community.
like it sounds like you're doing God's work in the community, because that, and especially, being from our community, when I mean, because we are, first generation migrants, and some
Mhm.
of us were born in the diaspora. So a lot of us, or a lot of our parents, are not educated when it comes to money. And like you said, there's the shame around money. And so where can people find you?
Oh, sure. So I'm
Where
on
can they
Facebook.
find where can they find Lane of Taxes? I'm sorry.
Sure. So my business is currently a virtual practice. I do that so that it enables me to meet with families at different times. I have a family now, so my hours have changed also to reflect the fact that I have a family. But I want to support day-to-day people, and day-to-day people actually work. Um, the average person who I deal with as a client, like, they're educators, they're not people on a come up. These are people who actually have really well-to-do salaries, have families, own homes, even children out of college. Their parents are like, you need to go to Julia because Julia is going to set you up right. You're not going to listen to me. I'm sure you'll listen to her, right? But everyone has different schedules. I also, to backtrack, um, when I was first introduced to taxation, I was working with expats. So expats are folks who are on travel assignments um, overseas for a certain amount of time, but you still have to report your taxable income or foreign exclusion income um, to the US. The US is one of the only countries in the world in which you still have to report the income. So even though their payroll is out of Saudi Arabia, obviously they're not going to be taxed for it, but it still has to be reported. So uh, that's my client base who followed me, so to speak. But I wanted to help my community. Um, I wanted to make sure that um, first generation folks understood that I was here and that I understood both sides of the coin. I understand how the wealthy operates, but I also know how my community operates. And I know that we are such hardworking people. And at the end of the day, sometimes we don't have things to show for it because we don't have things in its proper place. It's the proper place. Sometimes it all starts with a budget, to be quite
Mm-hmm.
frank. Um, some people are scared to know how much bills they have. If you ask them to write it on a composition notebook, they won't do it because it's scary. Um, some
So
people
let's
just want to
talk
get by.
about that. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about that because it is a scary assignment.
Mhm.
Um, Talking about money or having financial discussions, um, we were not taught to enjoy that kind of conversation. In fact, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is how
Mhm.
do you make that conversation less like a lecture, but something that we actually enjoy, just like we can talk about anything else around the kitchen table. We can talk about our financial situation as it is, or have that discussion among ourselves with our family around the kitchen table. And so you mentioned family budget. So what, according to what you have seen and some of the best practices that you have adapted, what do you think, Julia, is the secret sauce for balancing a family budget without losing your sanity, as we at least try to have that discussions
Mhm.
with our significant other, with our children around money?
So I think the first thing that you need to do is actually have a coming to Jesus moment with yourself. Um,
Okay.
and once you can have a level of comfort of where you stand in your finances, I think you will be able to, it'll open the door for you to have a more clear and concise conversation around where your finances are. Because finances, when people discuss it, is a very touchy subject. And I find the reason why it's very touchy is because there's a lot of ego attached to it. There's shame attached to it. You would have to have some form of accountability when you're discussing the finances, right? So who wants to say that they screwed something up, with overdrafts, or, I thought I was going to get paid this amount of money, but I didn't get paid this amount of money. I forgot I had to pay this on this date. No one wants to beat themselves up, right? So my first task would be coming to Jesus moment. First of all, forgive yourself for what you didn't know, okay? But you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And you have to put things in writing on a paper, in an Excel spreadsheet. List out the necessary things that definitely you are in charge of that has to be taken care of. Mortgage/rent, insurance. Most people in different states, I live in New York City, many folks don't require a car where we live. But in other states, you have to have a car to where you're going, right? So I'm not going to sit here and tell someone, oh my God, I can't believe you have a car note. I can't believe the APR is that much. Stop beating yourself up. This is the amount, you put it down. Once you total all of the necessary bills that has to be paid every month,
including your student loans.
Including your student loans. I'm waiting for Biden to get back to me. He's very busy. He said he's going to get back to me in a few weeks, right? You total that. You total how much your net income is monthly. Look at the sparing numbers. That difference tells you, one, I definitely need to make a change, right? I need to cut back on certain things. The other things that are not listed here, I'm going to have to cut back on those things. You need to acknowledge that there's going to be things you're going to have to cut back on if it did not make the necessary list. Some people make enough to just pay for all the necessary stuff. And some people are paying, they're working overtime, or they do side hustle in order to supplement all the other things that come after it. A cable bill, cell phone bill, right? Uber Eat bill. We could talk about Uber Eats a little later. No pun intended, right? Uber Eats is not for everyone, okay? It's a great service to use, but not everyone needs to be utilizing Uber Eats. This may not be your Uber Eats season. This may not be your Starbucks season. It may not be your Dunkin' Donuts season. It may not be, I'm eating out every day for lunch for 25 to 30 bucks season. So you need to pad that. But there's no way you can have a successful conversation if you can't take ownership of the conversation you're going to lead. You have to be willing to take ownership. So that's going to be the most difficult part. There's nothing sexy about it, to be quite honest. There's nothing that it could be so funny about it, because most of the time it's not funny for most people. Right. It's not a fun conversation, but you could have a more grounded conversation once you have tackled what has started and what the plan is. And then you could invite others and to have that conversation for constructive criticism and feedback. Because again, that's why there's a lot of divorce, a lot of egos at play, because no one's prepared. Well, it's not my fault. It's not.
So, Julia,
the ownership. Yes.
I love where you're going, and I want to push the envelope.
Sure.
One of the things that I've learned as you learn or read in the annals of human history, one thing remains consistent. When people are stressed, it doesn't matter what knowledge they have. You can teach them, you can educate them, but when people are stressed, they tend to do whatever they need to do in order to, and I'm going to put it in quote, cope with their stress. And what I'm trying to say is, here you are, you sit with someone and you do the budget analysis and you do all that, and then they get stressed. And now you have the Amazon expense, and you have the Uber Eat expense, and you have the spending money on perhaps more Netflix or more this or more that. How do you reconcile that? How do you help someone who is struggling with that to recognize, if you keep doing this, nothing is going to change. And if anything, you're adding additional stress into your life.
So, awesome question. I find often what triggers these individuals, let's say if I were to do a budget analysis and etc., is when it's almost like, Fabi, you and I decided we're going to go to the gym every day, and then I skipped the gym for 2 days. Oh my God, I skipped the gym for 2 days. Now I'm stressed out because I didn't want to let you down. Like sometimes they feel like they're letting me down. I'm like, they're not letting me down. Okay, you missed something. You made a mishap. That happens, but it still doesn't mean the plan is not the plan. The plan is still the plan,
It's still the
right?
plan, yeah.
So I find that when they feeling a stride and things are going well, and it just takes that one hiccup, and all of a sudden it's like they retreat, right? And they try to find something to, it's not so much justify, but again, quote unquote, cope. And then guess what? They now they feel twice as worse. Because like, wait a minute, I didn't make a sound judgment call. I didn't make the right decision. So in those kind of cases, I always tell them, you're not going to get it right every month. But the whole idea of having a plan or something written down is that you can track your success and you can track where it got lost.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing all of this stuff by memory, you're going to dig yourself in such a big hole. You're not going to know how to solve the problem because you don't even know where it began, right? You have to get to the root of the cause. So it's not for me. I'm still proud of you because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Like if I have a cheat day, I own my cheat days. They're mine, right? But the plan and the goal, the long-term goal is still the long-term goal. The 30-day goal is still the 30-day goal. Okay, so in 30 days, Fabi and I went to the gym. The goal was to lose 12 pounds. I lost 8 pounds. But guess what? I'm 8 pounds lighter
Yep.
than I was last month, right? So we're not going to solve, you're not going to solve the world's problem in 30 days because also life has been lifing, okay? And real life circumstances has happened to people. People have lost their jobs. People have lost loved ones. People have lost their homes. And I'm not talking about a foreclosure. I mean, there's people who lost their homes due to fire, to floods. We just had a storm the other day. I know a couple of people that are displaced out of their homes because of that. That wasn't part of the initial budget, right, Mondy and Fabi? So yeah. how do you, it's almost like you're bob and weaving, but that what's written and what's concrete as, okay, this is the basis of what I need to cover, and these are the other things that I want to do. These are my goals. I want to take my children to the Poconos for the holidays, or I want to host Thanksgiving this year. These things are still possible, but if we don't even start at the core of what we need to take care of in order to have recess, then we're just going to be running around the playground aimlessly with nowhere to go.
I agree. So, and yeah. It's like, how, I don't know, when you're getting a new job or you get an increase every year, I'm sure everyone, you like to get the pen and paper, you write down, okay, this is how much I make, this is how much I'm going to bring home. Somehow the math never math. Like the math ain't mathing, because the numbers you write down, because we all have these budgets. Okay, I'm going to bring home X amount of money, but you're looking at the end of the month and you're like, okay, there's zero. Where's all of the money that I had as a wiggle room? Because life happens. But it's important for you to not only do that big budget on paper and say, okay, this is how much I'm bringing, this is how much I have left after my bills, because you really did not calculate Uber Eats, like you said, because I don't think none of us ever really budget for that. If we're just saying, okay, well, yeah, this is X amount, I'm getting paid X amount I'm bringing home. We never really put Uber Eats. We never really put the concert that we want to go to. Like those expenses, yes, you may say, okay, $200 for entertainment. But now you cannot go to a show for less than $200, but you're going to 2 to 3 shows per month. So yeah, those are really real things that happens to us that you're talking about.
And I feel that once you are sound and can have the conversation, word placement matters. You can't be so direct. I do believe that if individuals are vulnerable in the offset of the conversation, it will set the tone of how the conversation would go. You can't be defensive when you're talking about budgeting. How do you get the other person involved? Like, I don't want to be spoken to that way with such a sensitive topic that we barely talk about in the first place, you know? So, you know, I tell people when you're having the conversation, it's better to be kind than to be right. And that your awakening moment may not be your partner's awakening moment, and you have to allow grace for that. And that's why it's important that you lead by example. So, you know, I have folks that have adult kids and they complain about their adult kids. And I said, well, how did you show up when you paid your bills? Have they ever seen you pay a bill? Have you ever complained about paying a bill? How do they know that you struggled? You never showed them. And that's a
You know,
secret.
let's because you mentioned something about
Mhm,
couples and finances, and so
mhm,
I wanted to ask, you
mhm,
know, in a world of family finance, because we're talking about you're in a relationship, whether
mhm,
you're married or whatever your family structure is,
mhm,
how important is it to have an emergency fund? Because we just talked about how sometimes the math is just not mathing,
mhm,
and things happen, real life things happen. Maybe one spouse or one person in the relationship lost their jobs, or
mhm,
whatever happened. How
mhm.
important is emergency funds, you know?
It's essential. I Emergency funds could literally I've seen emergency funds save marriages. And so I'll give you an example. Um, so people have a weird impression about when someone home uh, goes on fire and it's considered inhabitable. I'm not aware. I'm not sure if people are aware, but I would like your audience to know that even though your home is and not in a capacity to be lived in, the mortgage is still due, and you
Mm.
still have somewhere else to find to live. So you're essentially paying not one, but now two for two places in which you're only habitable for one. Okay. Insurance is not cutting a check in like 2 days and all this other stuff. Your insurance company, at best, if you don't have a broker who really goes down the minutiae of the different coverages that are covered, they're going to repair the home to the condition that it was originally built. Nothing more, nothing less. So all the little glossy stuff you put in that kitchen or the living room and all that, they're not, you change the ceiling to have sparkles, and they're not doing sheetrock. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if the reason why it's important for you to have the emergency fund, and notice we say we're talking emergency fund. I'm not talking about credit cards. You need raw cash. When you're displaced the first night, you're not going to have an insurance broker come and write you a check for meals. Do you
Or
get what I'm
call the
saying?
Marriott for you.
Or the Marriott, right? So like, there's things that you're going to have to spend. You're going to have to purchase clothes. Considering you ran out with everything that you had on, these are not expenses that you ever thought of. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right.
There's couples, who make very good money, but guess what? They're contractors. And guess what? We're going through what's called a silent recession right now. There's been
Mm-hmm.
huge layoffs that's been happening. There has been no severance for a lot of the contractors. So they were getting paid every 2 weeks, every week. Now it's gone, right? Now you're down to unemployment. Unemployment probably pays for what? Your cell phone bill and probably some toilet paper. That's as much as it gives. Was that factored into something happening? So I tell folks, Rome was not built overnight. I don't want people to feel pressured that uh, they have to stop everything they're doing to have an emergency savings fund, but you have to make it a priority because of the uncertainty of what's going on. Statistically, in an emergency savings fund, you should have an average of 4 to 6 months worth of savings for the bills that are necessary and ordinary for you. So that means that you should have at least 4 months of how much your mortgage would pay for those 4 months, how much your car note would pay for those 4 months, how much the car insurance would pay for those 4 months, how much your student loans would pay for those 4 months. You had a personal line of credit for 4 months. You recognize how that sounds overwhelming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell individuals is, hey, you know that those 4 things are due. What's the most important thing? Your mortgage. Make it your goal by the end of the year. Maybe you could have 2 to 3 months or just even 1 month. Do yourself that favor to make sure that you have that emergency fund. My tires blew out. Where were you going to get the money to do that? Emergency fund.
What an amazing conversation with our guest, Julia Bien-Aime. Unfortunately, we have to put an end to the conversation for today, but we will be back next week to continue, because this is important. Our love affair with money can either make or break our marriages, and so I think it's imperative for us to take the time to understand money, understand how to use it, and understand the relationship we have with money. So until next time, take care of yourself. Goodbye.